Hey guys, happy Friday. It's a how I do it sort of video for today. Now I had a lot of questions about my locomotive momentum and CV settings, and so I figured I'd just do a quick little video here for Friday to show you what my settings are, and we'll just kind of step through them. Now I know CVs can be very confusing. You got to have like a PhD to figure them all out. Got to be a mathematician and all that stuff. So after delving deeply into them, I basically came up with this short sort of list of default CVs that I initially program when I get my new locomotives on my programming track. Now this is all for SoundTraxx Tsunami 2 decoders here and Econami. So I've got, you can see my spreadsheet here. I've got like two of my locomotives, listed in this spreadsheet because I started to kind of reformat it here for easier viewing for you. And I'll have a screenshot of this on my community posts on the YouTube channel also, so you can take a closer look. But let's step through this. So when I get a locomotive, before, like when I got my my Santa Fe GP9, I just threw it right on the programming track, and this is what I program, right off the bat. Now, just a little disclaimer. Again, this is only for SoundTraxx. This is not for ESU. They got different, some overlap, but some do not. 99% of all of my stuff is athearn locomotives with SoundTraxx OEM decoders. So that just take that into account here. So let's start off at the top. You can see I got two locomotives here that I kind of threw in here. They're both pretty much the same. So and then I have the CVs that I program over here on the left hand side. So and I've kind of divided this up into the different sections of what they do. So first of all, the motion settings. So the voltage settings, the acceleration and all that stuff like that. CV number 2 is, I know these are kind of weird and out of order, but that's just the way CVs are. So CV number 2, voltage start, usually at 0. CV number 3 and 4 are the acceleration and deceleration. So this is the motion that makes that locomotive stop and start very nicely. It doesn't just jerk, go to immediate, full on, full off kind of thing. So I have mine set to 100, both the acceleration and the deceleration, right? Your high voltage, I usually set it at 200, the mid voltage 100. Again, you can kind of play around with these to your liking. Kick for some reason is always at 0. I don't know. That's just a default setting. Like I said, take this with a grain of salt. I may say something wrong here too also. So look, I'm not a CV expert. I just found this works for me, and it gets my locomotives working like you see in the videos there. All right, next section, the lighting settings. Basically, there's like two registers. Register 1, CV61, and CV62 is register 2. I just put them all the way up to the brightest they can go, 255. CV64 is the master brightness. I just set that to 255. I've got a couple some locomotives like these two here have, the flashing beacons and stuff like that. So, I just put rotating beacons here. You can do selections on those. Otherwise, you don't have to worry about it. Same thing with the CV55 over here, which is a gyrolite, which neither of these two have, but maybe one of my other ones does. CV59 is the actual flash rate, and that's why it says flash rate CV53 and 55. I select one. It's just the speed that the lights are flashing, like the two, rotating beacons, flashers, strobes, whatever. And you can kind of set those. I found one is what I like. All right, sound settings. So here's what I set. CV223 is the reverb and echo, makes it sound better. I usually set that to 4. Then you can select the different types of, this is all the selection of what horn do you have, what bell do you have, what prime mover do you have. I usually just leave those at default, which is why there's nothing in either of these settings here. Prime mover just so happens to be 2. I think maybe because I just looked at it and said, oh, it's 2, so that's what I put it at, or I just leave it at. The master volume, CV128, and again, this is all your preference. You can make it louder or softer, however you like it, but master volume I set at 160. And then I just found this in here. I threw this in here because I normally don't program this. This is just the default, I think, is 100 for the brake squeal volume. One of the recent comments was, how do you do the brake squeal and whatnot? So, and we'll get to that, but at least 139, CB 139, will control the brake squeal volume. I just found that literally and kind of tossed it in here, but I usually don't touch that. I just leave it, whatever, leave it as default, which I believe is the 100. Then we get to the miscellaneous settings. Here's where we can kind of start getting a little bit more complicated. So CV29 is the DC dual disable, and there's a note right here that says must be disabled to use keep alive. These are obviously my notes, but I kind of put that in there. So if you're going to use a keep alive or a current keeper, you got to disable the DC dual, whatever it is, again, mumbo jumbo, but I set it to a setting of 34. And again, some of these CVs can get really complicated because they do more than one function. You know, you got, there's like, you know, like I said, you got to be a mathematician. You got to add things in. You got to add like, you know, 3 different numbers to come up with this number. So I just know that if all of my decoders are set to 34 on CV29, that disables that function. Okay. Disable the auto start. So when you're actually, you know, put the locomotive on the thing, as soon as you power up the track, it starts, right? So we disable that. CV114 disables the auto start. In my case, I put it to 71. And again, this is a combination of different settings and whatnot. Don't ask me what the heck they are. You can delve into it yourself, but I use 71. That disables the auto start. So when I power up my track, all of my locomotives don't all just fire up. Okay, then CV286 is the RPM down, okay? But what I do is I use that to shut down my locomotive. So when I come to a stop, we're all done in the yard, I have it mapped to 27. So 286, I map it or set the value to 27. What that does is it maps it to my function 27, and I have that as a button on my controller. So once I'm there, I hit that function 27. It does the RPM down, which is already at 0 because we're stopped, and the locomotive goes through the shutdown sequence, right? 403, here's where we get a little bit of brake squeal stuff and braking and all that kind of stuff. But CV403 is the auto brake release. I think 0 disables it. As far as brake squeal, I think because brake squeal is automatically enabled, I don't change it or do anything like that. Like I said on this this upper one right here with the volume, that's just the default volume, I believe. And the way I have this set up, I do this and I get the brake squeal when I apply the brakes, right? So CV403 auto brake release, I put a 0 there, which I think disables it. And I think, yeah, you have to disable it in order to use the independent brake rate, which is the next CV 117, which is, again, like I said, independent brake rate. And that's so it's not just full stop, right? I set it to 200 and I found that works fine. And when I do that, the brake squeal just works. So when you hear my locomotives kind of, you know, coming to a stop a little bit and I'll have the brake on, you'll hear that brake squeal going off. Okay, and then the final CVs are all the alternate volume function. So I have an alternate volume setting where if I'm not doing a video and I just want to hear nice loud locomotives and stuff like that, I use all of these, you know, the max volume, whatever. But when I'm filming, my camera picks up the sounds really well, and so I need to actually have them down a little bit lower. Or, you know, if I'm just watching TV or something, I just want them a little bit lower but still want to hear them, I use the alternate sound functions here. Here's where it gets a little complicated because the alternate sound functions, which are these down here, you have to change another CV in order to access these CVs. Kind of weird, but CV 31 is at 16. You just got to verify it's at 16 because it's always at 16, but that's what they tell you to do. Then CV 32, which is normally at 1, you have to set it to 2. before you go off and make changes to this other one here. So you set CV32 to a value of 2. Now you can continue on with the other ones here, which is all of the volumes for your air horn. That's CV 289, and these are just my values, you know, so they're kind of going off of, you know, whatever volume the master volume is set for. These are just the lower volumes for all of those things. And you can see my settings right through here for the air horn, the bell, the prime mover, the compressor. I turn off dynamic brakes just because I don't like them, and radiator horn right here. So like I said, that's the way I do it. I take my locomotive as soon as I get out of the box. Like I said, my GP9, just threw it on there. I just quickly program this stuff. Use your favorite programming thing, JMRI, or, you know, whatever you use. I set this and it works. If you've got a SoundTraxx, you know, Tsunami 2 or Econami or similar, you know, maybe an older Tsunami, maybe some of this stuff won't work, but it does for me. There you go. And again, I will put a picture of this in my community post. Guys, have a good rest of your weekend there, and I'll see you in the next ops video. Take care.